Hi, I'm Mike Schwarzer. Something happens in certain conversations that is difficult to explain. You can only really witness it. A leader arrives carrying the full weight of their world, capable, experienced, performing at a high level, and yet there's a quality to their presence that tells a quieter story, a kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with sleep. The sense of someone who has been answering questions for so long, they stopped asking their own. Then, at some point in the conversation, something shifts. The questions get quieter. The pace of thinking slows. Something that had been tangled begins to loosen, and the person begins to see differently. And not because they have been given new information, not because a framework has been applied, but because the quality of the space made room for something deeper, a kind of intelligence that doesn't come from thinking harder. And nothing outside them has changed, but everything inside them has. Now, for a long time, I assumed I was producing that. Good questions, the right conditions, all the things a skilled facilitator learns to do. And those things matter. They create the conditions and they help the noise settle. But what arises in the settling, no one produces that. It simply happens when the space is quiet enough. Now you have to test this for yourself, but I've come to trust it. Think of a snow globe. When it's shaken, nothing is visible, but the clarity hasn't gone anywhere. It simply can't be seen. But when the shaking stops, what was always there becomes visible again. Not the creation of something new, but the return of something that was always present. And here's why this matters right now. AI is no longer a future possibility. It's the present condition, already embedded in how we work, how we communicate, and how we make decisions. And the conversations happening about it are almost entirely focused on capability, on risk and advantage. And these are real questions and important ones. But beneath all of them is a question not yet widely being asked. What quality of awareness is humanity bringing to the moment? And is it equal to what this moment actually requires? And here's the thing. What if we are not separate from the intelligence we are building? And if that's true, then the question is not only whether the technology is aligned, it's whether the human beings directing it are awake enough, grounded enough to direct it to what genuinely serves life. That is a consciousness question, not a technology one. And here's what I've noticed in working with leaders and those around them. There are conversations that stay on the surface. And then there are the rare ones that go somewhere else entirely, where something loosens, where a question arrives that you didn't know you were carrying, where clarity appears, not because it was delivered, but because something in the quality of the encounter made room for it. Now, most people experience this at least once. Far fewer have it regularly. And the reason is not that people are incapable of it. Rather, is that the conditions for it are rarely created deliberately. When these conditions are present, something shifts. Not always, not on demand, but often enough that it stops feeling like coincidence and starts feeling like something worth understanding. So here's the question I want to leave you with. What would become possible for you if the noise settled enough to hear what is actually calling for your attention? That is the question beneath the question. And in my experience, it is always where the most interesting conversations begin. You probably already know this.